Official Galactic Council report, classification status urgent, subject Sol 3, local designation Earth, filed by Senior Classification Officer Clicks 427. Standard cycle 7249.3. Look, I know what you're thinking, another boring planet classification, right? Wrong. This report is different, and I need someone to read it before I lose what's left of my sanity. I've been doing this job for 300 cycles, and I've never seen anything like this, never. Earth should have been a routine death world classification. You know the drill. Hostile environment, extreme weather patterns, aggressive fauna, the works. But no, oh no. The locals, they're called humans. They're not just surviving on this nightmare sphere, they're making it worse on purpose. Let me back up. I arrived at Earth last week for the standard classification procedure. The preliminary scans were textbook death world material. Atmospheric composition, corrosive oxygen everywhere, temperature variations, -50 to +50 degrees in the same regions, active tectonics. The planet's crust is basically a jigsaw puzzle in a paint shaker. My initial recommendation was going to be classification death world, avoid contact. Simple, done, back to the office for lunch. Then I noticed the modifications, and at first I thought my sensors were malfunctioning. The readings showed artificial augmentation of natural hazards. I mean, who does that? Who looks at a volcano and thinks, you know what this needs? More magma channels. So I did what any responsible bureaucrat would do. I double-checked the data, triple-checked it, then had a minor existential crisis in my ship's comfort pod. The humans aren't just surviving their death world. They're treating it like some sort of game. They have these things called extreme sports, where they deliberately seek out the most dangerous conditions and then make them more challenging. They build settlements in volcano zones, then add artificial geothermal features for, and I quote, extra spice. I managed to intercept some of their communication channels. They have entire networks dedicated to showcasing these activities. One human, who calls himself Jake Morrison, runs a popular stream called Spicing Up Mother Earth. Yesterday's episode featured him installing plasma vents along a fault line because regular earthquakes were getting too predictable. The truly terrifying part, he has followers, millions of them. They leave comments like, sick mod, bro, and can't wait to try this in my backyard. I've attached several recordings to this report, but I must warn you, they're disturbing. One shows a group of humans modifying a hurricane by seeding it with electrical charges because they wanted, and again I quote, some proper boss fight mechanics. My preliminary analysis suggests that humans have developed this behavior as some sort of species-wide coping mechanism. They've turned their survival into a competitive sport. They have leaderboards for surviving increasingly dangerous scenarios that they themselves created. Urgent recommendation, we need a new classification. Deathworld doesn't cover it. We're dealing with a species that looks at a planet that could kill them in thousands of ways and says, let's add more ways, but make them cool. Additional note. During the writing of this report, I received news that humans are now working on something called Earth 2.0, Nightmare Difficulty. I've attached my resignation letter just in case. Final classification recommendation, Hellworld, artificially enhanced. Approach with extreme caution. Postscript. The humans have somehow obtained my contact information and are sending me invitations to something called the Annual Extreme Terraforming Championship. Please send help. Respectfully panicking, Clicks 427, Senior Classification Officer. Galactic Planetary Survey Division. PPS. One of them just asked if our species would be interested in cross-platform play. I don't know what that means, and I'm too afraid to ask. Supplementary report, Earth Qualification Analysis. Filed by Senior Classification Officer Clicks 427. Attached documentation, historical assessment. Standard cycle 7249.3. After my initial report caused quite a stir in the council, and yes, I've seen the memes you're all sharing about my emotional state, I've been asked to provide a more detailed analysis of why Earth qualified for Death World status before the humans started improving it. Let's start with the basics, shall we? First, there's the atmosphere. Most Death Worlds have one or two lethal gases. Earth? Earth has oxygen. Oxygen. You know, that highly reactive substance that basically makes everything explode? Humans evolved to not only tolerate it but require it. They literally need explosive gas to survive. Then there's the weather. Most planets have weather patterns. Earth has weather warfare. In a single rotation, a given region might experience freezing temperatures, scorching heat, precipitation of frozen water crystals, liquid water from the sky, and sometimes, just for fun, balls of ice large enough to cause concussions. Oh, and let's not forget their storms that can flatten entire cities. Normal planets have wind. Earth has something called tornadoes, which are basically angry sky tubes that dance across the landscape, throwing buildings at people. The geology is equally delightful. The planet's surface is broken into massive pieces that constantly move and crash into each other. Imagine a puzzle where all the pieces are trying to murder each other. Sometimes these collisions create mountains, other times they create spicy mountains that spew molten rock into the air. Humans call these volcanoes and have historically decided they make excellent places to build cities. Speaking of water, because we have to talk about the water, Earth has too much of it. Most of the planet is covered in enormous bodies of salt water, deep enough to hide entire mountain ranges. These waters are full of creatures that seem specifically engineered to star in horror stories. There's a fish that looks like a living boulder and can crush submarines, an eel that generates electricity, multiple species of sharks that have remained virtually unchanged since before their dinosaurs because they were already perfect killing machines. Ah yes, the dinosaurs. We should discuss those because it helps explain a lot about human psychology. Earth used to have even larger murder beasts roaming around. We're talking about creatures so terrifying that even their fossilized remains make our xenobiologists need therapy. And what do humans do when they find these fossils? They build massive museums to display them and create entertainment about bringing them back to life. For fun. But the current wildlife's still horrifying. They have spiders that can kill you with a single bite, snakes that could poison a small moon, and bears that seem to take personal offense at the concept of death. There's even a small mammal called a platypus that seems to have been assembled from spare parts and weaponized. Which brings us to the most recent subject of my research, Jake Morrison, self-proclaimed extreme environment engineer, and the human who helped me understand just how fundamentally wrong we've been about survival instincts. I managed to schedule an interview with him about Earth's natural dangers. His response? He laughed. Actually laughed. Then he said, and I recorded this because nobody would believe me otherwise, "Oh man, you think the natural stuff is wild? Check this out. We've been working on this new project where we're breeding plants to be more aggressive. You know those carnivorous plants we've got? My team's been splicing them with fast-growing bamboo. We're calling them land krakens. Still working out some containment issues, but the test footage is sick." When I pointed out that this seemed unnecessarily dangerous, he showed me his project's funding page. They've received enough money to expand into 3 new research facilities. Humans are literally crowdfunding their own extinction events. I've also discovered something called outdoor survival challenges, where humans deliberately place themselves in the most hostile environments their planet has to offer, equipped with minimal supplies, just to see if they can make it out alive. They film these experiences and share them on entertainment networks. The more likely the participant is to die, the higher the viewing numbers. In conclusion, Earth was already a death world by every measurable standard. The fact that humans evolved there is concerning enough. The fact that they're actively working to make it more dangerous because they find their lethal hellscape too easy suggests we may need to create an entirely new classification system. Additional note, during this investigation, Dr. Linda Hayes from the Extreme Terraforming Initiative contacted me to ask if I'd be interested in seeing their plans for weaponized continental drift. I declined, and have since been in counseling. Respectfully updating my will, Clicks 427, Senior Classification Officer, Galactic Planetary Survey Division, PS. Jake Morrison has just informed me that this report has been trending in human communication networks. They're using it as a checklist for future upgrades. I need a drink. Field investigation report, human environmental modifications. Primary investigator, clicks 427. Assistant investigator, Blorpo standard cycle, 7249.3. Day 1 of investigation. Today marks the beginning of our official investigation into human environmental modifications. I've been assigned a junior investigator named Blorp. They seemed eager until I explained what humans are. Now they just look queasy. Our first stop was the Extreme Terraforming Initiative headquarters, where we met Dr. Linda Hayes, Chief of Environmental Enhancement. She greeted us wearing what appeared to be battle armor covered in scorch marks. When asked about it, she said, "Oh, this just got back from testing our new volcanic sprouting system. Would you like to see the footage?" Before we could decline, she showed us. Blorp fainted. After reviving my assistant, Dr. Hayes gave us a tour of their current projects. First was their Weather Modification Division, where they proudly demonstrated something called Hurricane Harmonics, a system for combining multiple hurricanes into what they're calling boss formations. Next to it was the Thunderdome, a climate control technology that creates permanent lightning storms for ambience. And let's not forget their tornado tubes, artificial tornado generators with, as they insisted on pointing out, sick RGB lighting effects. In the Geological Enhancement section, they showed us their tectonic turbocharger, devices for accelerating continental drift. Dr. Hayes was particularly excited about their magma manifestors, an underground magma redirection system for spontaneous volcano spawning, the Geyser Gauntlet, a pressurized geothermal eruption network designed for parkour challenges, made Blorp turn a concerning shade of green. But the Biological Engineering Department, beyond the infamous Land Kraken project, they've developed something called Kudzu 2.0 inches, enhanced vegetation with active hunting capabilities. Their mushroom kingdom features fungal networks with rudimentary intelligence and territorial behavior. When I asked Dr. Hayes why they were developing these systems, she looked at me like I had just asked why water is wet. For the challenge, obviously. Earth's base difficulty was getting too easy. We needed to spice things up. Day 2 of investigation, I met with Jake Morrison at what he calls the tutorial zone, a relatively tame area they use to train newcomers. He explained their ranking system while casually dodging attacks from the prototype Land Kraken. See, we've got different difficulty tiers. Basic zones for beginners, challenge zones for intermediates, and nightmare zones for the pros. We're working on a new ultimate tier, but we keep losing the test subjects. Volunteers. The tutorial zone features mini volcanoes that erupt on a schedule, artificial quicksand pits with difficulty settings, and carnivorous plant gardens with leaderboards. There's also something called a parkour paradise that makes me deeply uncomfortable. Blorp has requested a transfer. Day 3 of investigation. Today we witnessed their environmental enhancement process firsthand. Dr. Hayes invited us to observe a minor upgrade to the Australian continent. The procedure involved releasing enhanced versions of already lethal wildlife, installing weather modification systems in the outback, adding what they called spicy terrain features, and programming random event generators for maximum entertainment. When I pointed out that Australia was already considered one of the most dangerous regions on Earth, Dr. Hayes just grinned and said, "Exactly, it's perfect for beta testing." Day 4 of investigation discovered their planning committee for future updates. They're converting the Pacific Ring of Fire into a proper endgame zone, adding dynamic difficulty adjustments to all major mountain ranges and installing challenge generators in every major city. There's also something called Project Kaiju that I'm legally not allowed to discuss. Day 5 of investigation found evidence of an underground betting ring for survival challenges. Humans are wagering resources on who can survive the most enhanced environments. Current champion is a grandmother from Finland who apparently found the Land Kraken charming and adopted it. Blorp has resigned and joined a monastery. Can't blame them. Dr. Hayes has offered me a position as alien perspective consultant for their next project. I declined, but she just winked and said, We'll keep your spot open. Jake Morrison continues to stream his enhancement tours. His latest video, surfing magma waves while dodging land krakens, gone wrong, gone deadly, awesome, has 50 million views. In conclusion, the humans aren't just surviving their death world anymore. They're actively competing to see who can survive the most ridiculously dangerous version of it. They've turned planetary hazards into a sport, complete with rankings, championships, and merchandising. Still professionally documenting but internally screaming, clicks 427. P.S. Dr. Hayes just sent me preview access to their Earth 2.0 patch notes. I'm going to need more therapy. Emergency Galactic Council session to topic Earth 2.0 announcement, transcribed by clicks 427 under protest, standard cycle 7249.3. The Grand Council chamber fell silent as Council President Zax called the emergency session to order. Well, mostly silent. You could still hear my whimpering from the witness podium. This emergency session is called to order, President Zax announced. The topic is the recently announced Earth 2.0 initiative. Senior Classification Officer clicks 427, please present your findings. I tried to hide behind my datapad. Do I have to? Yes. Very well. I cleared my throat, or whatever passes for a throat in my species. Yesterday, the Extreme Terraforming Initiative held what they called a gameplay reveal livestream for Earth 2.0. Dr. Linda Hayes and Jake Morrison presented their, and I quote, roadmap for ascending beyond mere death world status. I activated the holographic recording. Jake Morrison's enthusiastic face filled the chamber. What's up, gamers? Ready for the biggest update in Earth's history? Dr. Hayes appeared next to him wearing what appeared to be experimental battle armor. We've heard your feedback about Earth being too predictable, too easy, and frankly, not lethal enough. Well, get ready for Earth 2.0, nightmare difficulty. Several council members gasped. One fainted. I envied them. First up, Jake continued, practically bouncing with excitement, dynamic death zones. Every region will now feature randomly generating hazards. You thought Australia was fun? Wait until you see what happens when we apply that principle globally. Dr. Hayes beamed at the camera. We're calling it the Everything is Australia Now update. Councillor Veeam's voice quavered. They can't be serious. Oh, it gets better, I said. Or worse, I don't even know anymore. The presentation continued with Dr. Hayes explaining their new boss battle system. We've upgraded various natural phenomena to include multiple phases. Hurricanes will now evolve as they travel. Tornadoes can merge to form raid bosses, and volcanoes, well, let's just say Pompeii was basically a tutorial level. Plus, Jake chimed in, we've added RGB lighting to everything, even the earthquakes. What's RGB lighting? Asked Councillor Nurk. Purely aesthetic, I explained. They're making their disasters pretty as well as lethal. Dr. Hayes continued with growing enthusiasm. But the feature we're most excited about is our new ecosystem overhaul. Remember our Land Kraken project? We're taking that concept global. Every biome is getting new apex predators engineered from existing species. We call it evolutionary acceleration. Wait until you see what we did with the squirrels, Jake added. The council chamber erupted in worried murmurs. I felt compelled to explain. For context, they've apparently given squirrels limited tool use and pack hunting behavior. They're calling it a minor upgrade. President Zax looked deeply troubled. Surely their governing bodies won't allow this. They're funding it, I replied. Apparently it falls under something called extreme tourism development. The presentation concluded with their most terrifying announcement yet. Dr. Hayes gleefully explained their challenge zones, entire continents dedicated to maximum difficulty survival scenarios. Think Australia, but cranked up to 11. Jake followed up with details about their new achievement system. Want to be the first human to surf a magma wave while fighting off neo-piranhas? Now you can earn points for it. As the recording ended, President Zax asked the question we were all dreading. How many humans have signed up for this? Current pre-orders are in the millions, I reported. They've had to add extra servers, their words, not mine, to handle the demand. But what's their motivation? Councillor Veeam asked. Why make their already dangerous world more lethal? According to my research, they're bored. Apparently, once humans master surviving in one type of lethal environment, they seek out greater challenges. It's like an addiction to danger. That's when the chamber doors burst open. Dr. Hayes and Jake Morrison strode in, wearing matching extreme survival gear. "Oh good, you're all here," Dr. Hayes exclaimed. "We were hoping to pitch our multiplayer expansion pack." Jake nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, we're thinking interspecies survival championships. Imagine the viewing numbers." Mass panic ensued. President Zax attempted to maintain order. "This session is temporarily suspended while we, assess these proposals." "While you're thinking about it," Dr. Hayes said, pulling out a tablet. "Want to see our plans for the ocean biomes? We're calling it Deep Blue Death." I tried to hide under my desk. "Request for immediate transfer to the Void Sector. I hear it's lovely this time of year." "Oh, we have plans for the Void Sector too," Jake called out. "Think extreme space parkour." The Council voted immediately to create a new planetary classification specifically for Earth. It is now officially designated as Error 404, Safety Not Found. Dr. Hayes has somehow obtained the Council's contact information and is sending everyone beta test invitations. I quit. Seriously this time. Clicks 427. P.S. The squirrels have learned to use ranged weapons. This is not a drill. Emergency Intervention Report. Mission status catastrophic. Filed by former Senior Classification Officer Clicks 427. Standard Cycle 7249.3. Following the disastrous council meeting, I was somehow volunteered to lead what we're calling the Earth Intervention Initiative. Despite my numerous resignation letters, currently numbering 47, I was informed that I'm the only one with relevant human experience. I tried explaining that having PTSD from human encounters doesn't count as expertise, but here we are. Our intervention team arrived on Earth this morning in what we thought was a relatively safe zone, the human city of Geneva. Dr. Hayes and Jake Morrison greeted us at our landing site, both wearing T-shirts that read, Earth 2.0 Beta Tester. "Welcome to the tutorial area," Jake announced cheerfully. "We've toned everything down for your first visit, only minor geological activity today, and we've temporarily disabled the enhanced wildlife spawns." A massive tremor shook the ground. "Okay, mostly disabled," Dr. Hayes amended. "That's just the new plate tectonic system running its calibration sequence." Our delegation's spokesperson, Ambassador HFY, stepped forward with all the confidence of someone who hadn't read my reports. "We are here to discuss the concerning escalation of planetary dangers and—" "Oh, you want to see the escalation systems?" Dr. Hayes interrupted excitedly. "Follow me to the control room. We just installed a new catastrophe randomizer." "That's not what we—" Ambassador HFY started, but was cut off by another tremor. "Sorry," Jake called out. "The randomizer's still learning. It keeps trying to spawn volcanoes in mathematically impossible locations. But hey, that's what beta testing is for, right?" We were led to their central facility, a building that looked suspiciously like a video game arcade. The walls were covered in leaderboards, achievement tracking screens, and something called Weekly Challenge Rankings. Dr. Hayes proudly showed us their main control room. "This is where the magic happens. See these monitors? They track every active disaster, mutation, and environmental enhancement across the planet. We're currently running about 47 simultaneous events." 48 now, Jake corrected. "The Hypercanes just achieved fusion." Ambassador HFY tried again. "We're here because the Galactic Council is deeply concerned about—" "Your safety ratings," Dr. Hayes interjected. "Don't worry, we've got a whole onboarding system for new players. Jake, show them the tutorial pods." "Players," I squeaked. "We're not here to—" "Check this out." Jake pressed a button, and a holographic display filled the room. "This is our new matchmaking system. It pairs survivors based on their experience levels and preferred disaster types. We've got categories for everything: volcanic parkour, hurricane surfing, kaiju evasion." Kaiju? Ambassador Wixie's translator glitched from shock. Still in development, Dr. Hayes said with a wink. But the prototype testing is going great. Want to see the footage? Before we could decline, she started playing a video of what appeared to be a genetically modified squid engaging in urban combat with a mech suit piloted by that grandmother from Finland. The thing is, Jake explained, pulling up more screens, we noticed other species were getting interested in our survival challenges. So we thought, why not make it inclusive? Interspecies competition could really spice things up. I tried to interject. That's exactly what we're worried about. Worried about missing out? Dr. Hayes nodded sympathetically. That's why we're offering early access passes. Sign up now and get exclusive access to our Primordial Chaos event series. Ambassador Yisi made one final attempt. We're here to stop you from stopping at just Earth, Jake grinned. Way ahead of you. We've got plans for a whole solar system expansion pack. Mars is going to be our PvP arena. The intervention team huddled for an emergency conference. After several minutes of panicked whispers, Ambassador Wixie turned back to the humans. Perhaps we could participate in a small trial run, purely for research purposes. That's the spirit, Dr. Hayes exclaimed. Let's start you off with something simple. How about our new Casual Friday scenario? It's just a regular hurricane with some minor volcanic activity. Perfect for beginners. And that's how our intervention team ended up enrolled in Earth's first interspecies survival school. Ambassador Wixie is currently leading the scoreboard in the zero-gravity lava dodging category. 3 other council members have applied for permanent residency permits, citing addictive gameplay loops and compelling risk-reward mechanics. I've given up trying to stop this. The humans have somehow turned planetary-scale danger into the galaxy's hottest new extreme sport, and we're all becoming adrenaline junkies. Send help or don't. Apparently, I'm registered for next week's Advanced Landkraken Wrangling course. Dr. Hayes says I show promise. Wondering how this became my life, clicks 427. P.S. The squirrels have formed a union and are demanding better combat equipment. The humans are taking their demands seriously. P.P.S. That grandmother from Finland has started a streaming channel. She's calling it Nana's Nightmare Mode. It has more subscribers than most planetary populations. Final status report, subject interspecies survival championships, filed by Clicks 427, Senior Survival Sports Coordinator, formerly Senior Classification Officer. Standard cycle 7249.4. Remember when I used to write reports about how dangerous Earth was? Those were simpler times. Now I'm writing promotional materials for what has become the galaxy's most popular extreme sport. Yes, this is my life now. No, I'm not okay with it, but the health insurance is amazing. It's been 3 months since our failed intervention, and I feel obligated to update the Council on how spectacularly out of hand everything has gotten. Though given that half the Council members are now professional streamers, this might be redundant. The first annual Multi-Species Survival Championships just concluded, and the statistics are concerning. We had participants from over 500 different species, representing 47 galactic federations. The viewing numbers broke several laws of mathematics. The merchandising revenue could buy a small solar system. Dr. Hayes and Jake Morrison have become celebrity game designers. Their latest update, Apocalypse++, has introduced features that make me miss the simple days of just running from enhanced wildlife. Now we have competitive disaster racing. Participants surf pyroclastic flows while dodging artillery from those militarized squirrels. The squirrels, by the way, have hired professional agents and are negotiating appearance fees. Extreme ecosystem engineering teams compete to create the most challenging yet survivable biomes. Last week's winning entry combined properties of black holes with puppet shows. Don't ask me how. I'm still in therapy about it. Boss rush mode. Remember that grandmother from Finland? She's now running masterclasses in what she calls kaiju psychology. Her Landkraken obedience school has a 3-year waiting list. The really worrying part? Other planets are starting to copy Earth's model. Mars has already been converted into what they're calling a dedicated PvP arena. Venus is being terraformed into an endgame zone. The moon is now a tutorial area, though someone accidentally set its difficulty to Nightmare last Tuesday. Our intervention team has completely gone native. Ambassador Wixie, after achieving the first ever perfect score in volcanic parkour while trading derivatives, has opened a chain of extreme survival prep schools. Their slogan, "Git good or git dead." The humans, naturally, are thrilled. Dr. Hayes keeps talking about expanding the gameplay loop to include cosmic phenomena. Jake Morrison's latest stream, teaching a black hole to play fetch, broke all previous records. The fact that it worked is less disturbing than the fact that the black hole is now demanding treats. Even my own species, traditionally known for our risk-averse bureaucratic nature, has gotten involved. We've established a department of extreme filing, where clerks compete to process paperwork while avoiding randomly spawning environmental hazards. Our efficiency has improved by 3,000%, though we do go through a lot more desks. The Galactic Council has officially redesignated Earth from Error 404, Safety Not Found, to Tutorial Server, Difficulty Setting, LOL. We've had to create 17 new classification categories just to keep up with human innovations in the field of making things spicier. Current survival statistics show that despite making everything exponentially more dangerous, the actual casualty rates have somehow gone down. Turns out, when you treat lethal danger as a fun challenge rather than a terrifying threat, people get remarkably good at not dying. Who knew? Dr. Hayes just announced their next major update, Universal Expansion Pack, Beyond Sanity. The preview footage shows them teaching singularities to dance. The singularities are apparently quite good at it. The grandmother from Finland has ascended to almost mythological status. Her latest achievement? Taming a quantum anomaly and teaching it to make cookies. The cookies are simultaneously burnt and perfect, and tasting them makes you speak in mathematical equations. They're selling like crazy. As for me, I've accepted my new role in this madness. Someone has to maintain some semblance of bureaucratic order in the chaos, even if that means filing reports while skateboarding through antimatter storms. My therapist says I'm making progress, though they might just be saying that because I've achieved diamond rank in the Extreme Cognitive Recalibration League. Final note, the humans are now taking suggestions for their next major project. Current top vote getter. Make the simulation we're living in more interesting by adding mod support. I'm not paid enough to unpack that one. Signing off to attend my Advanced Landkraken Diplomacy class. Clicks 427. Senior Survival Sports Coordinator, Earth 2.0 Administration, PS. The squirrels have developed space travel. They're calling it extreme orbital parkour. The humans are so proud. PPS. That black hole that learned to play fetch? It's now competing in agility tournaments. The prizes keep disappearing into its event horizon, but nobody has the heart to disqualify it. PPPS. Remember when I used to be scared of all this? Now I'm teaching a masterclass in Bureaucratic Survival, Extreme Edition. We file papers while doing backflips through lava. The waiting list is 2 years long, and I need a vacation, maybe somewhere nice and relaxing, like that new antimatter beach resort on Mercury.